All right. Hello, everybody. Okay, it's Liz of Haley and Liz Expressive Stitch Collective, and last video you saw Haley transfer her patterns and talk about getting a rug hooking pattern from sort of conception and pattern form onto its final, I almost said final resting place, but and ready to be hooked, I should say. I'm going to show you how I do that for my collaged embroideries that include not only just an embroidery design, but also some applique and fabric design. So the first one I'm going to show you is how I transferred this lobster design. Now you can see it's different fabrics, it's stitching, and I will show you exactly how I got that onto the garment. So this is actually where I started, and I draw the pattern out. And what I will do is, this was a little bit complicated, so I numbered the pieces. I don't normally have to do that, but because there were so many pieces, I did number them. Then I went ahead and I traced this whole thing again. I just grabbed a piece of, I just use like copier paper because it's lightweight enough that I can pin through it. I want to be able to pin through it. And I trace these pieces, and I'm going to use a different pattern to kind of show you what that looks like. You can see that this is a mermaid. I'll show you what she ends up looking like later. But I traced her, and then I cut her apart because I want this tail to be one fabric, I want the body and head to be another fabric, and I want the hair to be one fabric. So I can then go ahead and I can either draw around this with like a friction marker, or you know, whatever your favorite marking thing is for fabric. Probably not a Hera marker. You definitely need like chalk or an erasable pen, and cut that out. Or I can simply pin it to the fabric and cut around it, whatever works for you. On a complicated like the body, I would definitely trace this on the fabric and then cut it out. And then what I'm left with are the pieces sort of minus the detail. So we're going to switch from the lobster guy, and we'll move to the mermaid, and I'll show you what she looks like now. So you can see, I wanted to show you this one because it's sort of in the steps of, if you look, you can see she has, I did the hair. This is the hair pattern piece in sort of a reddish brown color. I did the body in sort of a woven whitish color, give it a little texture. And then I did the tail here. But none of the detail of my original drawing is in this. You can see the drawing originally has all these lines. The tail I didn't put it on because I just kind of drew that. So what I do is I take this product, is called, you've heard me talk about this before, it's called Sulky Solvy. And what it does is, you can see it's clearly, I've dropped a drop of water on here. It will dissolve when it gets wet, and it's made of, I think, cornstarch, and it just dissolves away. So I will take my Sharpie, and I will actually, before I cut this up to use my pattern pieces to cut out my colored fabrics, I will also trace the mermaid onto my Sulky Solvy. So I have all the details on there. Then I just put the Sulky Solvy traced mermaid away for a while. And what I do, and it's kind of hard to see because I have her basted down, is I go in all the way around my fabric pieces, and I will stitch down. I'll applique, it depends, you know, whatever your preferred method is, I will applique my pieces onto my base fabric. In this case, it's a shirt. A lot of people will use like a Wonder Under or an adhesive to do this. I choose not to do that. I really, it takes away for me the enjoyment of stitching when I'm stitching through something that's kind of essentially glue. And I also don't like the way it looks. I feel like I really enjoy getting a little bit of almost like loft and dimension in my work. I don't want it to look glued down. But if you're worried about your work shifting, or if you like that really perfect look, you could use a product like Wonder Under to adhere your fabric pieces to your base fabric before you go ahead and applique those down. One thing to keep in mind is if you would like to do a raw edge applique, which I did with the tail and the body, you can cut out your fabric pieces exactly the same size as your pattern. If you want to have more of a finished edge where you do a needle turn and turn it under, which is what I did with the hair, again, kind of just to give the hair a little more dimension, I add just a little bit, maybe like about 1/8 of an inch around just enough for you to be able to turn that under with a needle. And I have videos on how to do that. So once I have this on here, I go ahead and then I can just stitch right through. You see where I've done that. Stitch right through my design onto my background. And this is a great way to do, you can see I have words. Here you can see I've pulled the Wonder Under away, but I haven't gotten this wet yet. So it's still, there are remnants of it. These lines, I just used a ruler to draw on. It's a little different. You don't have to worry about the grain of the fabric as much when you're doing something like this. The anchor, I did very similar to how I did the mermaid. I drew the anchor out, traced it again, cut up my second pattern, which is great because that way you have a cutout pattern, but you also retain your original. And then, now this is a, I'll tell you this, I would do this differently this time. I wanted to do sort of this old school Sailor Jerry star. So I drew it and then I cut it up and I used my pattern pieces and I cut it up as I went, and just a little smidge off each time, not being perfect, but I don't mind that because that's one of the things I hate about stars and quilting and everything else. So I kind of got this spirally effect, which I don't mind. I did a ton of seed stitch in the middle and I kind of ended up really liking that. But if you wanted it to be perfect, you could cut it out in a different way, or just do it, applique it all together first. Okay, it's a great way to do letters too, that Sulky Solvy.
Can I ask a question real quick? Just, so you draw on the Sulky Solvy and then do you pin it to the shirt?
Oh, so I draw, thank you for asking that. I draw, and you have to use a permanent marker when you're drawing on the Sulky Solvy because it needs to adhere to the Sulky Solvy. If you can see these red stitches, what I've done is I based it down.
Those until you
you can pin it. I'll start by pinning it where I want it to be, because this can be a little fiddly because you're matching things up. I'll pin it and then I baste it, and that just it takes some time, but it allows me to be able to put it in and out of the hoop without worrying about pins and be able to carry it places.
And you take those stitches
and
out
I just snip those stitches and cut them out when I'm done.
Got it. As somebody who's a non.
Yep, you can see they're still over here too. I haven't taken them out.
I see. That's so funny how I like literally didn't even see them until you pointed it out.
Yeah, so those are there.
Okay.
And then I was just gonna have one that's kind of in progress. And there are lots of other things you can do. You can use a light box. You can draw freehand. Sometimes I draw freehand. You can, sometimes I get a little nervous about people. If you've watched this channel, you know. So if this were something else, I may just stitch without having those lines to follow. I may not even use the Sulky Solvy. I really like to kind of be improvisational. But with this mermaid, I really had something in mind. So I wanted to make sure it was almost like lettering. I wanted it to be a certain way. Sometimes when I do lettering, I just do it. If I want it to look very hand-drawn and sort of just whimsical, or have a certain feeling where I don't want perfection, I'll just hand draw. I won't even make a pattern. I won't do the Sulky Solvy. But now this is sort of one that's halfway. So I wanted to show you, this is a lobster claw And you can see the pattern that I cut apart is, this is the main one like this. And then this is a separate color. And you can see this top is going to be a separate color, but I'm going to add a lot of stitching and I really want it to look dimensional. So I could have not layered this, but I chose to layer it because I want to come in here with another color and go over this. So all of those stitches show and all of that difference in fabric shows. But yeah, so that is how I transfer my patterns. You can see this here is prepared to be a turned applique, turned edge. The rest of this was turned edge. This I want to get some fraying and some texture, so I'm leaving that raw edge. That is pretty much how I usually transfer my patterns. It's sort of drawn out on paper first, keep that original pattern, trace that. When I trace it, I usually do use a Sharpie so that I have nice cutting lines. I cut that out. If it's something I'm sort of cutting bit by bit, I might just cut each piece as I need it, but usually I just cut them and put them in an envelope. If there are a lot of similar pieces, I would say make yourself a map. Where's my lobster guy? Make yourself a map like this, so when you have all these little pieces cut up, because you've labeled them 1, 2, 3, you know where they go in the composition of your design. But let me know if you have any questions. You can drop them in the comments, and we can address those in a future video. But yeah, it's a fun way to just have an idea and get it onto your garment, or maybe you want to do a bag or a pillowcase or whatever it is you're doing. Wall art, I don't know, whatever. All right, thank you guys so much, and we'll see you in the next video. Bye.